And welcome back to Hey Eintracht Frankfurt, the best Bundesliga podcast talking everything about our beautiful club, Eintracht Frankfurt. I am your host, Matt, out of New York, and it is a Han Solo episode here from your boy. Going to do a quickly, super duper quick recap from a couple games that we had in the past. I know John did a quick recap episode before. We had some upload difficulties through Spotify and other things that were kind of out of our control. So I'm going to give you guys a quick, super duper recap from our last episode from when we played Heidenheim, Napoli, Mainz, recently Köln. We'll go over the Frauen side of things as well because they had a pretty big couple of weeks as well. Obviously, what are we drinking? And then the big game against Atalanta on Wednesday. So why don't we get right into it? Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy month for us here at HEF Pod. So apologies for the lack of production that we could produce you guys. We do this for free. Life hits us in the face a lot of the time, so it's kind of hard to manage everything, but we are glad to be bringing you some more Eintracht content here. So like I said, I'm going to give you guys a quick recap of the last couple of games over here, starting up with Heidenheim. I was going to leave it at that. Just keep it at that. Heidenheim was Heidenheim. We moved on to a Napoli game, which was an absolute incredible game. A couple things that we got to mention about that is I think Rasmus playing up a little bit higher than what he plays on the defensive side of things. I really think that helped out well. Putting Dawn on the bench because it helped us the defensive side of things. Obviously, Napoli was attacking us, kind of a little bit on the quiet side of things, but when it came towards the end, but I really thought, Ross was pushing up a little bit more, giving us a little bit more on the defensive side of things when we did get pressed. So it was more of like a 5, even 6 people in the back end was really, really super helpful, really, really strong first 5 minutes as well, I would say, which kind of helped us move up a little bit, did bite us in the ass. We did go up too high, and that's where Napoli kind of counted us essentially. Seti had strong hands. Our defense had strong hands, but this tie was a win for us. And I know Chris in Detroit hates ties as a win, but that was a pretty damn good win for us in that sense. So, really good things for our Champions League campaign essentially on that front end. So, onwards and upwards in that side of things, which we'll talk about Atalanta later in the show. And obviously after Napoli, we had the quick turnaround with the Rhein-Main derby. Our foes over at Mainz. I mean, you can tell they're getting tired. I mean, in that game, it just felt like they had heavier legs than us. I mean, they're killing in the Conference League right now. I think they're like 3rd or 4th right now in the Conference League. So clearly they have a little bit of more of a focus in there right now. But they put up a good game against us. We actually ended up having gave most of our plays an extra free time because obviously after the Mainz game was the international break. So I did not mind Dino starting Dahoud, starting Shkiri in the middle there, getting their legs a little bit going, giving, Larson and all the other like international duty players a little bit of a break before actually playing for their international countries. So that was kind of a nice rest. I mean, first half of that game it was a dud, which I feel like always happens, but Dawn made a great return to the lineup with an incredible solo goal to give us that win. And hey, we continue to dominate in the Rhein-Main derby, and it's ours. Both rivers are ours, is what I say in that aspect. So, good job on the boys on that front end. And then, Köln. Let's talk about FC Köln. We all know we don't do well when we play at the Rhein-Energie Stadion. We don't. Same thing when we play in Leverkusen. But something happened on Saturday. And I don't know what it was, whether it was the stars were aligned, the universe aligned, everybody was fresh coming back from their international break. I know it's only Köln, but wow, we played incredible. Let's not talk about the first 5 minutes because obviously Seti was in no man's land when it came to that. No one else should come out of that. He gave Kaminsky the goal essentially. It was a free gift to them. I guess got to be thankful some things. Thanksgiving, little things, early Thanksgiving present on his side of things. So Seti, you've been thankful enough. Thank you for doing that. Please don't do that again. But besides those first 5 minutes, holy cow, that whole hour was incredible. I mean, it was probably one of the best soccer I've seen from us play, essentially. I mean, where do we start? Teat Atotir getting his first goal with a nice, flick with the header. Those are the type of plays you usually kind of flick on the back post, have somebody else flick it in for you, but he did it by himself, and it was probably the most classic way a defender can kind of score, essentially coming off a corner kick. So very, very happy with Teat to score that goal. And then it just kept pummeling up, kept coming up. I mean, Ansgar Knauf was tearing it up on the left side over there, dicing people, cutting in, giving all of our, players an opportunity to score. I mean, Johnny fucking B, man. Johnny Burkhart is literally everything that we have right now. He's one of the best signings that we've probably done, most effective signings that we've had in the past that was at that kind of price range. So it's just been, it's Johnny fucking B. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to take from this game, right? Let's look at you with Johnny B. Johnny Burkhart, Johnny Boy, Jonny Boy Wonder. He is Germany's best striker. He should be Germany's best striker. He should be Germany's number 9. The composure he has, the unathletic, let me rephrase it. The unathletic, it looks unathletic, but it's the most athletic thing that a striker can do. He mirrors a Miroslav Klose to me. He's making the right runs. He's at the right place at the right time all the times. I mean, what was it? His second goal or his first goal when Ritsu Dorn ran into the to the end of the goal line, passed it inside towards him in the 6-yard box, and all he had to do was do a little toe poke into the goal. That is a striker's mentality. That is somebody that needs to wear the number 9 shirt for the German national team, somebody who's going to win the Torschützenkönig in the Bundesliga this year. Yep, Harry Kane. I don't care what you're doing. Even if Harry Kane wins, whatever Bayern's doing this year is incredible, but that's the only Bayern thing I'll say about that. Johnny B, Johnny fucking B, Johnny Boy Wonder is going to be the Torschützenkönig in the Bundesliga and going to be the number 9. I mean, it's just incredible. It's just the instinctions he has, and I believe Derek Ray said this on the commentary as well, is that he studies his teammates' movements and intuitions and tactics and stuff like that, and it's clearly showing. He's scoring a lot of goals for us. It doesn't look like he's stopping anytime soon. So, I mean, Johnny B, Johnny Boy. That's all I got to say. That's what should the title of this episode be. But that whole 60 minutes was just perfect. Like from defensive side of things to the midfield to the strikers, everything went very, very well. And then 4-1 came. And then some substitutions came in. And I don't think I would. Well, we're going to say this again this year. I hope we say this again this year, to be quite frankly with you. But I think Dahoud was our best player in that game. And I'm not talking just in terms of like goals, statistics, other, key performance measurements that a lot of, stats people liked. Once he left the field, a whole midfield, our whole defense was in no man's land. They shouldn't have. It's practically shouldn't have even played when Dahoud kind of left. Once Dahoud left the field, we pretty much substituted 10 people, and it was just Seti and the Köln offense essentially. I mean, once that came down, the full diva came about. I mean, if we're gonna be honest here, if there was an extra 5 minutes, which would have been 15 minutes of total extra time towards the end of the game, Frankfurt probably would have lost that game. And I would hate to say it, but we probably would have lost that game. It's just, we couldn't clear the ball, first of all. There were a couple times where we were just whiffing on clearances, which was just ridiculous. And everything else just did not come into play. And it's just weird to say, but Dahoud, obviously, he's got all the experience in there. Dortmund, yada, yada, yada. He's a stud for sure. He's got all the experience in it. But as soon as he left, it was like we were running around like headless chickens in there. And it showed. I mean, once came the 4-2, then it came the 4-3. And then, if, like I said, if they had another 5 minutes right there, the game would have been over right there and then. Game, set, match, auf Wiedersehen. So was Dahoud possibly the best player of that in that game? Maybe, but obviously Johnny B with 2 goals is not to put away. But this Dahoud performance could come into play later on in the season once our midfielders get a little bit more injured and, the season progresses and ailing injuries, get into worse situations. So it's just something to think about. But it also just shows how great of a depth we are. And I know it's FC Köln, but we haven't won there in what, 9 years, 10 years or something like that. I forget the number. I'm probably over exaggerating it. But those type of things, when it comes to those sort of statistical situations, those type of games, I'm more worried about us as a team than who we play. Because we could have played against Bochum or Gladbach in this situation, and we probably have the exact same scenario where, we're up 4-1, we get rid of our, most key influential player within the game, and, it gets a little bit scary. The diva kind of shows up there. So did the diva fully show up at the end? I'm going to say yes. Is she there to stay? That is another topic of discussion, which we'll get into later into the episode. But as we kind of continue here, looking at the Bundesliga schedule, because obviously, Bayern's up top, 10 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses. They look like they already won the league already at this point. So whatever. We're all used to this at this point. But in terms of us, we're in 6th place right now. We are 5 points behind Leipzig, who are in 2nd, and 3 points behind Leverkusen, who are in 3rd. So obviously, we're not even halfway through the season yet. There's still a lot of things to go through, but we are in the European spots right now, and we have 5 points clear from 8th place, which is not a international competition spot. So we're in the right direction. Obviously, we want to continue having a lot of European football for next season and stuff like that. But obviously, as fans, with the type of players we sold and the type of successes we've had in the last 5 years, Champions League needs to stay as our bar. So we're not up to par, essentially, is where I'm getting with that. But other than that, we have our usual suspects like Bayern, Leipzig, Leverkusen, and Dortmund. Stuttgart is still holding strong after all of their, selling everybody and stuff like that. They're sitting in 5th. And then we have Hoffenheim creeping behind our necks as well, with the same goal differential at 5. And then we have Union Berlin at 8. But that is kind of pretty much all it needs to know. And then at the bottom of the table, the best thing we have to learn is Mainz is at the bottom of the table. So, as I said, clearly they're focusing on the European, the Conference League right now a little bit too much. That Bundesliga woes continue. So, but hey, fuck Mainz. That's all we have to say about that. On the Frauen side of things, I'm going to do my best due diligence here to cover the Frauen as best as possible. It is unfortunate we still can't watch it here. We can watch the Premier League over here. We can watch the Women's Champions League over here. Bundesliga has to be next. So CBS, Paramount, Peacock, ESPN Plus, someone step up here, because we do need to watch this. Because, me recapping this isn't always the best thing. Because last time we chat anything about the Frauen here, we smacked Hamburg. Then 3 days later, we tie Köln. And then 3 days later, we beat Wolfsburg. So those are the type of fun matches that we like to watch here. But the Frauen have definitely been, on the positive trend in that aspect. I know, obviously, the beating Wolfsburg is a huge accomplishment. I believe that was Wolfsburg's 2nd loss of the season right there as well. And, Bayern and Wolfsburg are always the top dogs in the Frauen side of things. But most recently, they just beat Hoffenheim 6-4 in the DFB Pokal, so they're going to continue up on that there. But the biggest story out of all of this is moving on into the Europa League. So a couple weeks ago, we were playing PSV. We beat them 2-1, and we actually ended up winning 2-1, or scoring the 2nd goal in the 90th minute in the first aggregate, which gave us huge momentum to the second leg this past week. We ended up beating them 3-1 there. Total aggregate 5-2, which is obviously great. We got to continue going up and stuff like that. So our next opponent is in the Danish league, and they're called Nordjylland. I totally butcher that name. So if any Danish people would like to fix that for me, please send me a voice memo, because I couldn't even get the phonetic side of things out of there. Just couldn't understand it. But that's the Frauen side of things. We play them way later in February, whatnot. So it's nothing to really put on our radar until then. And although the girls just play, or the Frauen, did just play, 3 games in quick succession within like a 9-10 day window. The next game isn't until December 10th, and that is against the mighty, mighty Bayern. So we will let John and Co take over that the preview, because obviously they have more of the legal, more of the streaming services that we can utilize to watch those games. So they will definitely have a better recap for you at the next episode. But that's it. That's kind of it on that side of things here. We're gonna move over to hashtag What Are We Drinking. I definitely shouted these guys up before here, but Hank Hudson Brewery up here in upstate New York, kind of around the corner over here. They have a beautiful golf course over there. Just got to say that, close for the season. However, though, they have phenomenal beer. They have very good IPAs. And on Wednesdays, no free ads, by the way, but on Wednesdays, if they have a deal for 20 wings and 2 beers for $20. So go check out Hank Hudson in Half Moon, New York, because they're definitely a great, great spot, a great vibe, great beer, great food. But that is hashtag What Are We Drinking here. So for what's going on here next for the Eintracht here? So, I mean, nothing too crazy, really. I mean, we just have this crazy Champions League game happening on Wednesday against Atalanta. So let's talk about them for a second here. Well, us, first of all, we need to get a win here. We're on the bottom side of the qualifications table in the Champions League, so it's a must-win kind of situation. It's a must getting points situation here. That's where we're at. Must getting points. But let me give you a little bit of background about Atalanta, because these are not the same Atalanta team that were in the Champions League 3 years ago, where they were just surging and stuff like that. Because obviously, as we know, the better players at these mid to smaller clubs go to bigger clubs and whatnot. So Atalanta, though, in this 2025-2026 season right now, they are 13th in Serie A. They have won 1 game out of their last 7 games. 5 of them were draws, so we'll give them that. 1 of them was against AC Milan, and then they drew Juventus, not in the same stat, but a couple of games before that as well. So some quality draws. They also lost to some bad teams, which is not good. They just sacked their coach, Ivan Juric, who was probably there for about 7 months or so, because he was poached from another team that I'm blanking out right now. But they do have a new guy in there who has maybe head coach for about 3 years, all in the Italian league. One from Monza, I forgot the other team and whatnot, but very inexperienced coached. And just to put the cherry on top, Atalanta lost to Napoli 3-1 over the past weekend. But they had better shots, they had better possession or not. But as you know, with Napoli, they definitely take care of their chances. Or when they do get a chance, they can take care of their chances. I think the biggest thing I'm trying to mention everybody here with Atalanta is they're kind of a diva like we are. So I'm more worried about us than I am worried about them, because if you look at their names, look at their rosters, there's really no other big names, unless if you think of some players like Zappacosta, who was a pretty decent player at Chelsea pre-COVID times. And then some of the American fans here, Yunus Munsa, former Juventus guy. He's at Atalanta now. Doesn't get as much playing time over there, but at least there's some sort of USA men's national team representation there. So definitely keep your eyes on about that. But Atalanta, man, they are just as much as a diva as we are. And, you know, if the game didn't end the way it did against Köln on Sunday, I'd say we'd have a bit of a better chance against Atalanta. But I am so much more worried about us. And there's a couple factors that I think need to come into here that will help us be successful against Atalanta. One, we need better defensive support, I think. And I think what we're gonna continue is a 4-2-3-1 sort of like lineup, essentially, where, you know, we'll stay with Nathaniel Brown, Atutea, Koch, and I think we keep Collins back there. We continue with Rasmus up there instead of Doan, put Doan on the bench, and then we'll have Götze, we'll have Larson, we'll have Knauf, we have Johnny B, and then we'll also have Ferris Scheibe in there as well as our lineup. So I think as long as we stay defensively strong and connected, and, you know, I don't think Teddy will run away from his box again, because he just did that last week. But I don't think, you know, as long as Teddy has strong diamond hands, I do think this is a type of game that we can easily get away with 3 points here, which, you know, obviously 3 points is max. 1 point is a must at the least. So it's definitely going to be a good game, and I do anticipate all of our experienced players stepping up here with Knauf and Gutze, and then Rasmus just kind of being that extra oomph essentially that we needed in the back there, because as long as you follow that Viking roar, that Viking passion, who knows what can come away with that. So I do think Rasmus is going to be a big portion of our game here. But yeah, this is something that the boys need. We seem to be heading in a positive direction now. Is this the Köln game is definitely the type of energy I would like to bring into the Atalanta game, which will help us be a lot more successful, as long as we stay within those 60 minutes of where we just killed it. Not the first 5 minutes, not the last 20 minutes of the Köln game. Whatever we did in that 60-minute window right there, we need to bring to Atalanta, and that will put us in a continued progression. Hopefully we can continue this quote unquote non-losing streak, essentially, because I'm not counting that Dortmund game as a loss. I mean, penalties is a 50-50 shot. We technically haven't lost a game in over a month since Liverpool. So that's how I'm viewing our situation right now. And we're going to continue that trend with going towards Atalanta. So yeah, man, it's going to be a good game. It's just, I just worry about us. It's just how we wake up, what kind of breakfast we're eating, how's the sun shining and stuff like that. The best part is that we're home, and I'm sure our ultra fans will do something with like fireworks at front of the Atalanta hotel at night, just to, do those kind of fan shenanigans as all Europeans fans do. But it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good day to be an Eintracht fan that Wednesday, and it's going to really help us propel for our next Champions League game, which will be at the new Camp Nou in Barcelona in December. So yeah, we must get 1 point. We could use 3 points is what I'm trying to get at against Atalanta here. Yeah. And then we have Wolfsburg after that. It just doesn't get too much easier here with our lineup and whatnot. The good thing about Wolfsburg is they're not the Frauen Wolfsburg. They seem to still be the same Wolfsburg that they have been, just teetering above the relegation spot year after year. I mean, they won one out of their last 5 games as well. I think they've conceded the second most goals behind, or third most goals behind us, obviously, in the Bundesliga. And it's going to be hopefully an easier win. Obviously, it's going to depend on how we come out against Atalanta here, but our depth is definitely going to come into key here. This is going to be our last push, or this has to be the last push before the the winter break for the boys. So we don't have another international break until March, which is great news for all of us local fans. So now it's full focus on Bundesliga, full focus on Champions League, and continuing to branch out that Eintracht Frankfurt brand name right there. So it's onwards and upwards here, or just upwards essentially. And we're gonna kill it. We're just gonna kill it. And I think that's gonna be kind of pretty much it here. I'm looking at all my notes. I have people texting me some couple things here and stats and whatnot, but I think we're going to be pretty much set for our game on Wednesday here, folks. And that should be pretty much it here for this episode at Eintracht Frankfurt, episode 370 here. Appreciate you sitting around here for the solo episode. I apologize if I rambled on a lot here, but it's always fun to start chatting here with you guys, and chatting the Eintracht name, baby. That's all we want to talk about here. So give us a like, give us a subscribe. We're on all the socials, whether it's hefpod, hey Eintracht Frankfurt. You can just put us in a Google thing. I'm sure there's a automatic follow-up on that lets you follow on each social media link that we have there for you. I was your host, Matt from New York, Matt SGE New York on the Twitter side of things, Wagner_8 on the Instagram side of things. And yeah, we will be following up with you guys after these games on Wednesday and Sunday. And then until then, tschüss. Frankfurt, la 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 la.
la la.